Shelley Winter Show, live, local, topical, and relevant. And in true Shelley Winter Show form, we had Charlie Bailey, chair of the Democrat Party of Georgia, on at the last segment. Now in studio with me is my good friend and brother, Josh Mckoon, chair of the Georgia GOP. Hey, Josh. I started with Charlie Bailey by saying congratulations on yesterday. I've got to start with you by saying what happened.
Thanks, Shelley, for having me. You know, what happened yesterday is we had an off-year special election with almost no notice. And look, kudos to the Democrats for turning out voters in the Athens area. Republicans turned out voters too. It wound up being about a 200-vote margin. And, I fully expect that next November we're going to win that seat back, and I think we'll win it by a significant margin. 10,000 people turning out in a state with 11 million people is not going to tell you what's going to happen a year from now. But look, they got the win. They get the kudos for that. We're going to continue to work hard. And, I will say this too, having all of these special elections, in an off year when our party controls the White House, there's decades of political history that show you that puts us on our back foot. I ran for Secretary of State in 2018. I could have resigned early and said I need to go raise money for the 3 or 4 months before the primary. I didn't do that because I made a commitment to the people that I served to serve out my term. And so I would really encourage our elected officials, serve out your term. Let the people decide. Make sure it's the greatest number of people that vote during the regular election.
Right.
Let's not have dozens of these.
So what happened
specials.
in this situation? Where's the person that was the incumbent from this special?
So Representative Wiedauer made an announcement, in November, just saying he was some changes were happening at his business, and so he needed to resign midterm.
Understood.
Very little notice. You talk to ordinary people all the time. Early voting was going on during Thanksgiving, people getting ready for Christmas, all the stuff that goes on. It's extremely difficult to get people to turn out and vote. So you wind up getting this distorted view. And again, Democrats worked hard. They turned out the vote.
Let me play the other side. The Democrats turned out. It's same Thanksgiving for them, same time frame for them. They turned out. So is that? I understand the special election line, and I get it. And you're right. It is a small percentage. A special election is going to have low turnout, but they won. How can we be confident in November that doesn't replicate itself?
Well, I think if you look, because we've had a number of elections over the last couple of months, and the Georgia Republican Party has really leaned in several places. We were heavily involved backing Rusty Paul, a former chairman of the Georgia Republican Party, for mayor of Sandy Springs. Sandy Springs went 23 points for Kamala Harris in November of 2024. Sandy Springs went 40 points for Rusty Paul. Now, am I going to sit here, Shelley, and tell you next November we're going to get 70% of the vote in Sandy Springs?
Right.
No. But what we did demonstrate is that when we put our targeting resources to work, we're able to turn out the vote. If you look at Atlanta City Council race, you had Thad Flowers, who was backed by the Working Families Party. These are the people that backed Mondami in New York. We had Thomas Worthy running, an executive with Piedmont Health. We got behind Thomas. We let the Republicans in that district know you need to get out for him. He won convincingly. We stopped a socialist cold in the city of Atlanta. We did the same thing in Senate District 21. Senator Beach, when he vacated that seat, we had the first round. People were scared. Oh, the Democrat was in the 40s. We got behind now Senator Dickerson. We turned out our people. So we've demonstrated through a number of these elections that we can turn out our people and win. Did I think that we would get the result we got in an R+22 district yesterday? No.
Right.
But all this tells you is we are a battleground state. This is a competitive state. You've got to work hard and you've got to lean in. But where the Georgia Republican Party has engaged in 2025, we have won.
So we do know it's a battleground state. So this is the first that I've heard you accept the fact that Georgia is a battleground state.
Oh, it's
a lot of Republicans don't believe that. They say, "Oh, we're solidly red." You understand that it is a battleground state.
So last year, 2024, all year long, I said the same thing over and over again. I said, if we do our work and we turn out our vote, Donald Trump will win Georgia. He won't win big, but he'll win. We won with a 2.1% margin, 115,000 raw vote margin in a state of 11 million people.
Right.
That's not a slam dunk. That's winning a football game by a field goal. But that is where we are in Georgia right now. We are very closely divided. But we are a center-right state, and when we do our job and everybody turns out, Republicans win.
So that being said, and I'm panicking. I admit to panicking, and I'm trying to get others to hear me panic so they will panic. That being said, how do we keep the House in the State House, and how do we win all of our statewide elections in November if people are apathetic, as it seems, and if people are maybe some not unhappy, infighting, divisiveness, all of that? How do we ensure that we keep the State House and win these elections statewide?
So I think the silver lining of the elections that you've been talking about are that it's a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for Republicans that, I have preached this for the last year. We can't say we got Donald Trump elected, man, we're done. We don't have to do anything else.
Which it seems like some people are doing. Like if he's not on a ticket, there's no turnout.
Well, and I think what you're going to see as we get into 2026 is I think you're going to see Donald Trump in the state of Georgia. I think he's going to be visible in this campaign. I think it's going to be helpful. I heard your earlier interview with my counterpart on the Democratic side. Look, the Republican Party is the party fighting for working class people. The Democratic Party, I know he's raising a lot of money for millionaires in New York and California. I think you said he was out in California probably passing the hat again. They can't credibly lay claim to supporting the working class. Now, we need to, and Commissioner King talked about it today in a policy move that he's making out of the insurance department. We've got to be in touch with the concerns of the average Georgian and understanding your personal economy is the most important thing to the Republican Party. We want you to succeed. We want your children to succeed. This is a great state to live, work, and raise a family, but we got to make sure people understand the reason it's that way is the Republicans have been running the state for the last quarter of a century to create this environment where people can succeed.
We're in the studio with Josh Mckoon, chair of the Georgia GOP. I want you to talk about the infighting. I talked about it when you're, in my opening segment. I'm seeing it all over the place. It's got to stop. What message do you have? Because I know you're a target of a lot of the infighting.
Yeah, look, I put a lot of the noise to the side. There are these people that are perpetually online that don't really show up when it's time to knock on doors and make phone calls and do things like that. So you can't focus on the noise. You got to focus on the vast majority of people. For example, there are a lot of people in when I say Republican Party world, the people that show up to the party meetings and the conventions, that'll be very critical of our governor, as an example. Our governor is one of the most popular governors in the history of the state.
Absolutely.
And if you talk about Republican Party voters, independent voters, he's incredibly popular.
Right.
So, where most people are is they see what we're doing. They want to be supportive of it. What we've got to do is we've got to tell our story. We've got to talk about the wins we have provided. And we got to say, what are we going to do going forward? How are we going to put money in your pocket? How are we going to help combat the...
That's up to the candidates. I understand what you're saying, but we're running out of time. But that's up to the candidates to do. What about the party, the state party? How do you motivate the voters?
So we target voters to turn them out with messages that we believe get them out to the polls. And some of that in the Sandy Springs race, it was a lot about public safety. It was a lot about what this mayor has done for you on public safety. And if you elect the other guy, what is it going to look like, right? So they're tailored messages that speak to kitchen table issues that people care about. And as people invest in the Republican Party, we're able to do more of that. And that's the mode we're in right now, is raising funds so that when we get to the fall next year, we're able to affect these races because it's those pockets of voters. Again, 115,000 on a statewide ballot 2 years ago. Maybe it's more or less, but you're talking 2 or 3 percentage points. That's where the party makes the difference. That's where a grassroots machine, the overall campaign, the candidate, the rest of it, it gets you maybe tied. And then the party is like having a really good place kicker to come in at the end and put you over the top. That's what we're trying to position ourselves to do.
How can the listeners now who want to donate to the Georgia GOP, how do they do that?
You can go to gagop.org and click on the donate button.
My man, Josh Mckoon, chair of the chair
No,
of the
don't put that on me.
Chair of the Georgia Republican Party. I had them both on. This is going to be interesting going to 2026. Thank you, because by you talking to me, you talked me down.
Well, good.
I'm still panicking. I'm still panicking, but I'm not as angry anymore. So I appreciate you coming in, but I'm still panicking. I still want to see more of my activist class. Yes, less yelling from them and calling names, and more donating and volunteering.
We got to get to work. There's no doubt about it.
We'll be right back. It's the Shelley Winter Show. Thanks for coming in studio, Josh.
Thank you for having me.